Welcome, everyone. It is noon, and we'll go ahead and get started. People will continue to join, and that is just fine. My name is Christy Ganya, and I'm a program manager for Telehealth Rocks. This webinar is presented by Telehealth Rocks and the Heartland Telehealth Resource Center. And just to share a little bit about our programs, Telehealth Rocks is a federally funded program that focuses on school-based behavioral health. And we do that through a couple of methods, working on social determinants, supporting school-based services, and telementoring trainings just like this one. The Heartland Telehealth Resource Center is a federally funded resource center that seeks to increase adoption of telehealth in order to better serve rural and medically underserved residents in Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma. And we do this by providing technical assistance to clinics, hospitals, providers, and health systems, as well as providing outreach and education through virtual training webinars. We have Telehealth Rocks and HTRC team members Evelyn Nelson, Haley Bell, and others who are here to help. They might be putting items in the chat or responding to questions or chiming in during the session. Feel free to reach out to any of us if you need something. So we're glad you're here for this webinar to discuss nutrition and healthy lifestyle. If we can go to the next slide, we'll share just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. This session is being recorded and we'll send it to you afterwards. Your microphone has been muted. Feel free to type in the chat or unmute to ask questions. Please make sure your first and last name are visible on your Zoom screen, or you've typed it here in the chat so that we can record attendance. Next slide, please. We have no disclosures, and everything presented today is evidence-based and currently accepted within the profession. Next slide, please. And then after the session, we will share the slides and recording just as soon as we can. All links and resources shared in the chat will also be sent in the follow-up email. Give us just a little bit of time to process those, and we should look for that tomorrow. We appreciate your feedback on our follow-up survey. We really do look at survey responses and help take your advice and your feedback to adjust trainings. And then certificates of attendance will be emailed. Again, give us some processing time on these. I would look for them next week. And then please feel free to send any questions you have to the emails listed below. On the next slide, we're excited to have Dr. Ann Davis from the University of Kansas Medical Center joining us here today. She's a professor of pediatrics and the director of the Center for Children's Healthy Lifestyles. So I will hand it to her to get us started today.
Hey everyone, good to see you this afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate your time. I'm excited to be with you today to talk about children's healthy lifestyles with a specific focus on rural children and families. So we're going to start off by going over some facts and statistics about the rates of various health conditions in rural children and families. And then we're going to describe the iAmHealthy Parents First program, which is one way to address these issues. And hopefully we'll have some time for questions and discussion about what you all are working on in relation to healthy lifestyles and nutrition in rural children and families. So one of the conditions that's relevant to nutrition issues is pediatric obesity. And the prevalence of pediatric obesity has been growing over the last 30 years or so. I'll show you some maps that some of you may have seen before. The current prevalence of obesity is around 20%. And the reason we care about this statistic is that it's related to various health conditions, such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, asthma, sleep apnea, and the list goes on. The statistic that really caught my attention was that this is the first generation of children who are not predicted to live as long as their parents, and it's directly due to overweight and obesity in childhood. So this health condition is having a significant impact on the health of children today. So you might have heard of BMI or body mass index. As adults, there are flat numbers that we get. So for example, normal weight is considered a BMI between 18.5 and 24.9. But for children, because we want them to gain weight and grow, it's part of being healthy. You can see the normal curves on this growth chart here. We have to use a percentile or a BMI Z score, which just confuses things, frankly. But in general, children who are over the 85th percentile for age and gender are considered overweight, and children who are over the 95th percentile are considered obese. according to these experts. They have some newer metrics that they've come up with as of 2013 to just confuse us even more. These are just ways of trying to separate the over the 95th category because a lot of kids are falling into that range. And so just saying a child is over the 95th isn't really giving us enough information about where that child is falling on the growth curve. So maybe some of you have seen these maps before that were created by the CDC. These are actually rates of adult obesity, but not surprisingly, rates of adult obesity are highly indicative of rates of obesity in children. So as all of you know, this is a map of the United States, and you can see here that this started in 2011. And in our state of Kansas or any of our surrounding states, you can look here to see, according to the key, what the rate was. Usually it's around a quarter or so. So I'm just going to flip through the years here. You can see in 2012, we have more yellow. In 2013, we see the emergence of these dark red, which is over 35% of the adults in those states are obese. You can see more and more red and orange progress here as the years go on. In 2018, we see a solid salmon color, I guess that would be, which is, 30% or 1 in 3 of adults in those states. Here we go. The colors changed slightly in 2019, unfortunately, but the message is still the same. And then in 2020, we see lots more of this darker orange color. And then here's a recent metric on the same rates in childhood. So you can see in some of these darker states down here, we see 30% or 1 in 3 children also is diagnosed with obesity. And according to your state, you can look at the prevalence here. So the point is that over time, rates of overweight and obesity, no matter how you slice it or dice it, are becoming much more prevalent. And the, as we've discussed before, there are real medical consequences to these high rates of overweight and obesity. There's also economic consequences, and there's psychosocial consequences. There's some research to suggest that high weight can contribute to low self-esteem or decreased quality of life or peer victimization and things like that. So experts have tried over the years to come up with different solutions or steps to address overweight and obesity. In 2007, the American Academy of Pediatrics partnered with a number of other organizations to come up with some treatment guidelines, organizing how we're supposed to approach pediatric obesity. And these recommendations started with all kinds of prevention or recommendations that are good for everyone, moving all the way through, very significant treatment. These guidelines were updated in 2023. So you may have seen some information about the new 2023 guidelines that's added more details around the treatment expectations for children who have a high elevated BMI. And they called these key action statements. And the first key action statement was to simply measure things. So that's one of the first questions I wanted to ask all of you is I can see in the chat where many of you work. I'd be interested to hear from you if any of you are doing any sort of surveillance of the students you work with to try to measure students' height and weight on an annual basis, and then provide this information back to families. Because as we all know, the first step to changing behavior is becoming aware that there's something that needs to change. And so if any of you are in taking part in any initiatives that involve calculating or measuring height and weight, I'd love to learn more about that. But that was key action statement 1, for example. And there are, I think, I don't remember, 24 of these or something. I just wanted to highlight a few. The first one is that we are supposed to address overweight and obesity. So there used to be a philosophy that we should wait it out and see if the children's their height velocity makes up for some excess weight. Research has pretty strongly indicated that doesn't usually happen. Once a person becomes overweight or into that high BMI category, usually some active steps are needed in order to move them back into what's a healthier range. Common techniques that some of you might be using are motivational interviewing, if you're working with a specific family, for example. But the main one that we're going to focus on today is what they called intensive health behavior and lifestyle treatment. That's what iAmHealthy is. It's what's referred to as this iHBLT. And the expert committee guidelines put some parameters around what counts as an intensive health behavior and lifestyle treatment. And the main component is that it needs to be at least 26 hours, and it needs to include the whole family. Um, let's see. The other thing they recommended was that it should be provided for children 6 years and older, but it may be provided for children 2 through 5 years of age. So some of you who are working with very young children, that this iHBLT would be relevant for your populations as well. So my job when I came back, I'm from Kansas City, and I went off and did all my training and started off as a child care provider and went to graduate school and did all the things that you need to do. And when I came back to KU, they needed to have one of these iHBLTs or intensive health behavior and lifestyle treatment. And so my task was, how do I, as a single person in Kansas City, deploy an iHBLT that's relevant for our entire state? And that was how iAmHealthy was born. So you can see here a series of studies that we've done over the years. We've partnered with many people on this call and others throughout the state to figure out, number one, what families wanted. What type of approach did they want that they would resonate with them? What components of the treatment package did they want to see? We partnered a lot with schools. And how could we make this program more convenient for schools? And then how can we switch this program to be available over the evolutions in technology so that it becomes easier and easier for families to participate? Christy, are you seeing this text on the screen here?
Yes, I believe someone might have typed a note meaning to type it in the chat. So I think this is a note from a participant about how they track weight at the
Okay.
beginning of the year. I am trying to figure out how to turn the annotation off. So
Okay. Well, if
just
there's anything I need to do, just feel free to interrupt me
okay.
because I am not sure how to make that go away. Hopefully it's not bothering anyone too much. Okay, so this is the communities that we are lucky enough to have worked with in developing the current iteration of iAmHealthy, which is called iAmHealthy Parents First. And so I'll tell you a little bit about this program, which is available to all of the families that you work with who meet the inclusion exclusion criteria for the program. These are some of the people I'm lucky enough to work with. Dr. Christy Beffert, and then some of you may know Chris Tuck, but she's been instrumental in our program, a former school nurse and in the state of Kansas, and then many others who are part of the team. And they all help us to deliver iAmHealthy all over the states of Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Nebraska. And so what we're doing in this program is we're recruiting 240 parent-child dyads. We're about halfway through. So if you've heard of us before, we've recruited about 120, and we're pushing forward to collect the next 120 families who'd like to participate in this. All the families get intervention. They just are randomly assigned to get the one you see here on the left or the one you see on the right. All of them get the iAmHealthy program, which on these slides is called the family-based group, but some of them also get a parent-only health group before that, and some of them get the same information via newsletter. So the real difference between the two opportunities is, in one case, the parent information is delivered via newsletter, and in another case, it's delivered via groups. And the parent groups are for 3 months. You can see here in the yellow blocks. So parents meet weekly for 3 months, or they get a newsletter. And then all of them get the iAmHealthy program, which I'll tell you a little bit more about. So their total participation is for 9 months. We designed that to coincide with the school year, but we're starting groups right now. So we're starting groups all year round. So it's not necessarily that it begins in September or something like that. Families do help us with some measures at 3 different time points, and they're paid for doing that. And the whole thing is over Zoom. So it's fully remote. People can participate from their homes. If they don't have a device or they don't have Wi-Fi, we give that to them to participate in the study. So we've tried to make this really approachable for all the families that you work with. As I said, we're seeking families in the states where you are who have a child in the 1st through 5th grade. So it might be that an older sibling for one of your families would qualify. The child needs to have a BMI over the 85th percentile, and the parent's BMI also has to be over 27. Most children, usually, parent weight status is highly correlated to child weight status. So usually those two things go together. And then we are specifically focusing this opportunity on families who live in a rural area, who want to make healthy changes for their family. And at this time, we only have this in English. We would love to be able to offer it in Spanish very soon. So in the parents first, as I said, they either get these groups over Zoom with other parents who are participating. Usually there's 10 or so families in the group with them, or they get the same information via a newsletter. The newsletter is self-guided. Both of the interventions focused on things like what foods you want to eat more of, what foods you want to be more, cautious with, different parameters and guidelines that are commonly recommended by health experts. So these would probably be things that your parents have heard of before, but what most of our participants say they enjoy about the parents first portion is the accountability. So they have other people who are on the call with them help with accountability, encouraging each other and giving each other tips and tricks. So that's what happens in the parents first group. We also give them a lot of intervention tools. So the parents get a step counter so they can keep track of their activity. They're offered an app that can sync with their activity tracker and the Bluetooth scale that we give them as part of their participation. And then they communicate with their health coach through the app. So their health coach can say, great job on getting your 10,000 steps yesterday and different things like that. You can see some of the topics up here on the really well-designed weekly manual session topics up here. So, meal planning, eating at social gatherings, goal setting, all things that are good for all of us to use every day. And here are the topics of each of the weekly parent group sessions. So obviously self-monitoring is a big part of both the parent portion and the child portion. As a psychologist, I know that before you can change a behavior, you have to start tracking that behavior. And so we really start off with that with our self-monitoring. And then we focus on some activities, so moving, setting smart goals, focusing on diet quality. So really maximizing the nutrients you get out of the food that you eat, and some of the other topics that you can see listed here. Then we switch to the family-based intervention. So what we've been talking about so far is just the parents meeting with other parents. Once we switch to the family-based portion, it's the kids joining too. And so the kid and parent portion last 6 months. Everyone gets this, whether they had the parent portion via newsletter or the groups. And there's really three parts to this family-based intervention. The first is family-based behavioral group sessions where kids, from all over the state, kids and parents, the dyad, they're on a Zoom call with kids and parents who are participating from other areas of our region, and they're going through a session by session manual together. Each family also gets an individual health coach that meets with their family outside of the group meetings to really help them take what they're learning in the group meetings and apply it to their specific family situation. So if they have some unique dietary needs or other, factors to consider in implementing some of the components of the iAmHealthy intervention, that's really where that individual family health coach could meet with the family and help them to apply that. There's also some group exercise activities that are offered as well. It's all delivered via Zoom, and it's a lot of fun. The kids usually are pestering their parents to want to attend these groups and see the other kids and report on how they've been, meeting their step goal or eating their fruit and vegetable goal or other, health behaviors that they're really proud of. The kids also get step counters to monitor their steps and other activities. They get a family-friendly activity manual that they can use, and access for the parents to the Garmin Connect app. So here's the family-based group sessions. We teach the kids about the stoplight diet, which isn't really a diet. Some of you might have heard of it as slow go and whoa, or red, yellow, green. And basically we teach the kids how to categorize different foods, and then based upon, the category that the food is in, talk about whether that's something you want to eat every day or you just want to eat once in a while, and, different things like that. We talk to the parents about behavioral parent training, like tracking and incentives and goal setting, and all different kinds of concepts that you can see here. Oops, I went backwards instead of forwards. So here's the stoplight diet. We've taught children as young as 5 to correctly categorize these foods. And this stoplight diet is good for everyone, no matter their weight status. So I'll just take a moment here to explain it to you in case you haven't heard of it before. So green foods are go foods. Those are fruits and vegetables with no syrups or other things added. And they're called go foods because we want to eat as much as we want, as often as we want. Go, go, go with those green foods. And then yellow foods, we want to think of that blinking yellow stoplight. They're caution foods. Not that we shouldn't eat them because we need them to survive. So they're low fat meats, pastas, whole grains, all different kinds of food groups fall into the yellow food category. But we want to be cautious about number of servings and number of the serving size, because a lot of the yellow foods, we have a tendency to eat a lot more than the recommended serving size. And then red foods are foods that we all love and we all eat and should eat, but we want to stop and think before we eat it and just mostly be aware that we are eating a red food. A lot of us have red foods that sneak into our diets and we don't even know it. So we just want to be aware so that we can meet our goals and plan appropriately. So anyway, the only thing that the kids have to remember is how to tell the difference between a red and a yellow. And so we spend a little bit of time teaching them about nutrition labels, which, as you all know, are overly complicated. And so we teach them to look at two things, which is fat and sugar. And so if a food has over 7 grams of fat or 12 grams of sugar per serving, it's a red food. And if it's under than that, it's a yellow food. So we play lots of fun games with the kids where we have different laundry baskets and we have them throw the food item into the appropriate laundry basket. And again, it's not that we shouldn't eat those red foods or that they're off limits. It's just we want to be aware when we're eating them. So anyway, that has been a mainstay of health behavior change, nutrition health behavior change programs since the 1970s. And so most of us use some version of this in our programs. We have great goal setting sheets that we use with the kids to help them to track. They set family based goals like going for family walks or cooking dinner together, things like that. And then in the family health coaching that I talked about, that usually lasts for about 30 minutes. It's usually about every other week. And the families give us feedback on how we're doing, and we see if they're meeting their goals and talk to them about, barriers or other things that are getting in their way. And it's really designed to address each family's specific needs. If they've missed a session, we use that time to catch them up. As I said, they get the activity trackers, one for the parent participant and one for the child participant. They get those Bluetooth scales, which can be helpful. And then they are paid for doing those 3 data collection time points over the 9-month period. One of the families that participated, they were an awesome family from Beloit, Kansas. And there's a cute video of them. They were on open mics with Dr. Stites. So I'm not going to play the video now, but it'll be in the slides that we send out. And if you'd like to hear directly from Mandy and her son who participated in the program, it's a really fun short video clip. And then additional quotes from families who've participated. They say things like, the study instructors met us where we were, the virtual group of parents was supportive, and we're not having conversations about health. We're now having conversations about health in everyday life. And I know that's something that Mandy and her son talked about as well. So if you watch the clip, you'll see them talking about how they now shop together, and how going through the program has really changed their shopping experience with each other. And then also they cook a lot together, and they talk about that, and then they track their steps together. So anyway, they're a pretty representative family in terms of how they've used the intervention. We're partnering with all kinds of folks in rural areas to try to make families aware of these opportunities. So it's summer break right now. So one of our main partners is elementary schools. But we also partner, we've done a series of talks with statewide public health partners, rural extension, medical clinics throughout the state. And then, of course, we're delighted to be here with you all today to really try to get the word out to rural families about this free opportunity. Here's some of the communities that have partnered with us. So if you're in one of these areas and you're interested in this, field, I'd be happy to connect you with other people who've expressed interest in iAmHealthy from your local area. We also have a website, and you can go to our website and sign up, and then you'll start getting, we can send you free flyers or any other tools that you might need to get the word out with your children and families in your region. So I'm just very interested to hear what you all are doing related to nutrition and activity. And then also, we're looking towards the next version of iAmHealthy. So, we've gotten about halfway through with this one. We hope to be finished with recruiting families by maybe October or November. And after that, we'll get to apply for a grant to do the next version of iAmHealthy. So I'd love to hear from you all too, not only about what you're doing, but also about areas that you think families, especially rural families, need in terms of pediatric obesity or pediatric nutrition needs. So I'll just finish the slides by saying, pediatric obesity and related health behaviors do disproportionately impact rural children and families. Treatment programs like iAmHealthy are more effective when they're in line with those IHBLT guidelines and really focus on lifelong behavior change, not short-term diets, or that's not what we're going for. Um, but other less intensive options like working at your workplace to get rid of the junk food in the vending machine, or other less intensive options like that are really positive steps as well. So happy to talk about any of those things with you too. And then we really all need to partner together from the different sectors to really improve the nutrition of the rural families that we work with. I think Telehealth Rocks is a perfect example of that, bringing together today's webinar, which includes people from, the education sector, the Department of Health, like all different sectors across the region. So at this point, I would like to just open it up for your input and comments and questions and hear what you all have been thinking about.
And we do have a question in the chat about they're located in Tennessee. Would it be available to them? Can you talk more about kind of the area served and how, if they're outside that area, they might?
That's a great question. Tennessee. So I think we'd have to submit a few forms to have Tennessee participate in the study, but I wouldn't be opposed to doing that if you feel like there'd be a lot of families there who would benefit. So I'll put my email in the chat, and maybe the person from Tennessee could email me, and we can see if that's something we want to pursue.
Sounds great. Thank you. We've got another question that says, with this study or previous studies, have you seen that access to real-time feedback from RPM's devices impact participant motivation or behavior change? So
I'm
with the
assuming
devices.
Yeah, I'm assuming RPM is remote patient monitoring, but if the person could please correct me if I'm wrong about that. But yes, I think that, as I said before, as a psychologist, I think the key to changing a behavior is first measuring the behavior. So the easier we can make it to measure a behavior and the more accurate the measurement is, then the more likely we are to be able to change that behavior, right? So just as remote patient monitoring can make it very convenient. You don't have to keep track of every step. For example, you just look at your Fitbit or your Garmin or whatever you have, and you know how many steps that you've gotten. So yes, that can make it very, very, very helpful. In terms of the scales, the most research around the scales for adults, we don't use them very often with kids, but for adults is that they can really help even just the act of daily weighing, which sounds like a lot, but daily weighing can help people to know when their weight is changing, and so that they can catch how maybe a change in a health habit is impacting their weight much earlier. And as anyone knows who's tried to lose weight, it can be very, very hard. So if you can catch that change earlier in the process, say after you've only put on 5 pounds, you're more likely to be able to change that habit and re-normalize your weight. So that's the main research that I know of that's been around adults with the scales. Um, Another way that we find them to be really useful is that our coaches don't have to ask people, how many steps did you get or what does your scale say? We can just see it in the app. And so we know. And so if a family is struggling, we can see that in their numbers and we can talk to them about that.
Sounds great. Thank you. We've got another question about how does the program address the need for access to internet or the appropriate tech to participate?
Yeah, so we loan them an iPad with a data connection for the 9 months that they're in the study. So they can, participate in the health coaching and do the measures and use their devices and everything, just like everybody else.
That's great. We've got another question, and if you do have questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll get to them here in a minute. The question is there an opportunity for the program being open to families that do not meet the BMI requirement, for it to be more proactive? O-
It's a great question, and it's something we always struggle with, right? Because we want to be able to help all families. This particular program is for families where both parts of the dyad meet that BMI criteria. Um, some of our other programs we've done in the past haven't required both participants to be over the BMI criteria. I think an intervention that, again, I'd love to hear what you all are doing, and an intervention that some of my colleagues and I are thinking about for our next version of iAmHealthy would include elementary school building type interventions that would be good for the whole school. And then iAmHealthy would be layered on top of that. So we would have programs that we would propose in that next grant that would be for families where they don't meet that BMI criterion, but we don't have that yet.
Thanks for that info. And then we've got another question in the chat. Is there guidance around working with families with limited resources or in poverty, in following the I Am Healthy approach?
Yeah, we deal with that a lot. As you know, one of my graduate students just completed her thesis on the rates of food insecurity in the I Am Healthy participants from our last project, which was called I Am Healthy Schools. So there's a very high rate of food insecurity among families that also experience overweight or obesity. So yes, we do talk about shopping on a budget, looking for food pantries, other local community resources that could help families who are food insecure or experiencing other poverty related challenges. And then with the individual health coaching, we can literally help families budget. We can uh, go around the grocery store with them as they're choosing product A or product B, or planning meal A or meal B, with a real eye on the economic implications for the family. There's been research to suggest, and this is all around the United States, that eating healthier isn't more expensive, but that there's a lot of variability in that, and it often requires more cooking knowledge than what our families, especially our young families these days, have access to. So helping them to learn how do I prepare this food that's more nutritious and also less expensive for my family.
That makes sense. Thank you. Let us know if you have any other questions. Oh, we've got a long one
Yeah,
here in
I
the
can
chat,
see
so
that
you may
one.
want to take a peek at it too. But I can give a go at reading it. We have she says we have a smaller, similar program in Indiana. We are introducing a research component, but traditionally have just been a community program offered to families. So despite getting the word out with lots of community partners and families really enjoying the program, once they do join, we're having trouble getting families to register and to commit to the program. They have already shortened the program to 8 weeks to try and make it more accessible. And they also have limited funding for incentives. Do you have advice for recruiting families and getting them to commit to the program, especially in a rural area?
Yeah, it's really challenging. And I've been doing this type of research for about 20 years now, and I've actually seen this shift a lot. It's always been hard to recruit families, but I feel like in the last 3 or 4 years, it's gotten even harder. I think families' appetite for something that's 9 months long feels burdensome to a lot of families right now, and then also something that's weekly for 9 months long feels burdensome. So, we've been thinking about, going even more tech forward with the next version of iAmHealthy, where a lot of the content would be delivered instead of in groups. It would be delivered via videos that families could watch anytime they wanted, 24 hours a day. As you know, families are very, very, very busy. Um, and then we would just have the health coaching component continue for families who wanted it. But that way, the content would be freely available to any families who wanted to uh, avail themselves of it. But I do think recruiting families is very hard. One way that we've had some success lately is to partner with pediatric obesity treatment programs, where these are families who are talking to their health provider about their child's weight. They're concerned and they're looking for some sort of treatment program. So those families have usually already expressed an interest in something's not working. I need to do something different. And so that can be a good resource. I think also partnering with schools who are doing BMI screening and wanting to offer some sort of program for children who are in the higher BMI ranges that are more likely to have a negative impact on their health. Oftentimes in rural areas, they don't have anything to offer those families. So one of the arguments against doing the BMI screenings is, well, we're going to identify a health problem and then not have anything to treat it. So that's where your program could step in and say, well, you could screen for the health condition and then offer this program as a way to address that identified health need. So those are a couple, but I agree with your struggle. I think it is a challenge to make these kinds of programs more appealing to families.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And then we've got another question wondering if DCF, the Department for Children and Families, is aware of the program or if you work with them at all. Wondering about giving guidance to children in the foster care system.
I would love to work more with the foster care system. I think I know that that's a protected group of individuals, as it should be. So I'm not sure of the ins and outs of the research aspect of that, but I'd love to partner with you, Sue, or whoever would like to reach out to me to come up with a plan that would be relevant for the foster care system. That's a group of kids that I would love to work with.
Thank you. And then we've got one more question. Is this available in Kansas City, Kansas?
So this current version is specifically targeting rural children and families. Previously, we had a program called Healthy Hawks, and yes, that was a precursor to iAmHealthy, and it was in Kansas City, Kansas. But at the current time, it's not running. We're focusing on this iAmHealthy program, but I'd love to get something going in KCK again.
Thank you. And I think we've gotten through all of the questions in the chat. So I'm going to share some kind of wrap up info, but if we have more questions that come in, we will be, and I can share screen for that.
Okay.
We will take a pause and we'll make sure we address them. All right, so we want to say thanks to Dr. Davis for that wonderful presentation and for answering all of our questions. We enjoyed learning more about nutrition and healthy lifestyles and your research that you're doing. It's very exciting. We want to know from the audience something that you'll take away from the session. So let us know, did you learn something new? Is there a strategy you want to try? Is there something that a piece of information you'll share with your coworker? You can just type those here in the chat. And we'll give everybody a minute to type. And then while those are coming in, people are mentioning the red, yellow, and green eating, saying thank you for the presentation. So we'll let those keep rolling in. We'll go on to the next. We've got an upcoming event to share with everybody. The Heartland Telehealth Resource Center is hosting a webinar on June 24th. There will be a link in the chat to register for that. It is presented by Dr. Griffiths from the Eastern Oklahoma Medical Center, and it's on transforming school-based telehealth through rural partnerships. Thanks for all of the information that's coming in through the chat. Looks like we're talking a whole bunch about the stoplight diet. So thanks for sharing that, Dr. Davis. All right. And then thank you to everyone for attending and joining us in the audience today. We enjoyed learning with you. We have just a few follow-up items for you. There is a survey in your inbox about the training, and it should only take a minute to fill out. And we really do appreciate and read through your responses. They help us with future trainings and to know what worked and what didn't. So submit your responses and let us know what you think. And then we'll send all the follow-up materials to your email, so watch for those tomorrow. And the certificates of attendance will take just a little bit longer to process, and they should be sent by next week. So thank you everybody for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.